Oh, look at this. It's almost kind of like a documentary type footage, right? Look at this grainy look. Really driving that home. At the edge of destruction, at your fingertips. Wow. Bloomed. Wow. Consuming. Interesting. Just like that. So casual. And it's so compact as well, right? My God. Just multiples going off. Look at that. Huh. Of course. Of course. That is poetic. Dark, but poetic. It most definitely did. Alongside plenty of other thoughts. I mean, it's Pandora's box, right? Mutually assured destruction and all that. Oh my God. Oh, wow. Wow. I mean, they're flying right into ground zero, man. Yeah, back up, back up, back up. Wow. Whoa. This is kind of reflecting the real Poof's disturbed nature at the moment, right? You know, the pretty face stripped away. True nature. The real Poof below. Wow. It's quite the opening. Quite the opening. My God, that right there is a shot. Haunting. Yeah. That's a bridge too far. But yeah, you know, oh, beautiful background. Look at that. Yeah, it's his first chance to actually get a look. Poof and Yuppie are flying right into the radioactive fallout. The aftermath, eh? Okay, let's keep that in mind. 30 minutes. Oh. Oh, the relief on his face. So authentic, eh? Return to us. I saw it. I saw it. Ah. Go on, fill him in. I've seen it. He doesn't like it. Of course he doesn't, right? That's why he doesn't like it. They're not duty bound anymore. Personal motives at this point. Morals and all of them are gonna stay. All of them. No chance that anyone leaves. Yes, you have. Squat up. Right. Ooh. I mean, his senses are heightened at this stage, sharp, dialed in. And she's hypersensitive to everything at the moment. Oh man. This should be interesting. Whoa. Immediately apologetic. But whoa. Okay, Gon-kun. Gon's not one for false threats, is he? And given that aura and the tone of it all, I don't know, man. That's... Yes, yes, exactly. Ah. Oh man. Look at this. Oh. He's looking at her as an extension of the enemy at this point. Yeah, Knuckles' face. It told a story, all right. She gets it as well. That's never going to happen. Wow, look at this. I feel for her, man. I do. Again, I can only speak for myself, but... There's a few reasons for that, perhaps. Oh. Right. Right. York New City all over again then, right? Ooh, interesting. I mean, she's safe, but of course she doesn't completely know that, right? Whoa. Whoa. Poof is on the edge at the moment. No? He's broken. Get it together, man. Hmm. Composed. Right. He's different. He's built different, right? Magical beasts and all that. He can adapt to it. Ooh. Cool reference, I think. Oh, this is building up. Ooh. Oh, he spotted him. How's that for symbolism, eh?
ユピーの方向は不吉なすべてを含んでおり、その姿を確認する前からすでにプフの顔は涙で覆われていた。
Oh my god. The limbs just, they got decimated. I mean, oh my god. Doesn't he look so statuesque? Well, holy shit. The king is kind of around still, right? Just the remains of him, essentially. And, like I said, he looks just so statuesque, almost like a statue of Buddha, in a sense, right? How about that for imagery? Memorable imagery at that. Now, the fact that there's a confirmation here that the body is found, right? And it's a harrowing scene as well, isn't it? Yuppie and Poof coming across this situation. And unfortunately, they've gone into ground zero now, right? Even before that, they flew close enough as, in the beginning of the episode, you see both of them understanding, the connotations of the smoke and the vibrations and all of that in the air. They understood something's happened now, right? So even approaching ground zero, they must have been so on edge, so uneasy. And then of course, coming across that situation, you see Poof just breaks. He's legitimately just a broken person at that point. And it took someone like Yuppie to kind of get him together, kind of step up and take that leadership role in that moment, because he understood that his sibling, his partner, at that point is just not able to comprehend this, right? He is just shook to the core at the possibility of the things at play here. I looked at it as, okay, Poof is just thinking about the absolute worst, right? And he's right to as well. So is Yuppie, but he's able to keep it together up until a certain point at least, because ultimately his mind also shatters. Understandably so, once he does come across the body, right? It's a jarring sight. It's uneasy to look at that. The remains of Meruem, right? The limbs have been blown off. But the thing is, I've been shown a body. Tagashi's made a whole scene out of it. It's a big deal that they've retrieved the body, even if it is in that shape. So it appears that the king might, there's possibly a good chance that the king might actually live on, right? In terms of how that might come about, who knows, man? Who knows? It's going to require something special. I mean, that's a given, right? But the fact that they have shown the body now, I think that's a big step in terms of a revival, I think. And just the visuals of Yuppie holding him, it looks like he's holding a toddler, right? How about that? Given everything I've seen up until this point, the desperation there is so raw and authentic. I felt, at least, I felt for both of them. I'll only speak for myself. I felt terrible for both of them, especially Yuppie. You see, even in the build up to it, as Yuppie and Poof fly closer and closer to ground zero, you see that he is kind of overcome with emotion, even though he keeps it in check, though, of course, like I said, his mind's kind of shattered. And then he's truly overcome with emotion to see his king, to hold his king, right, in that form. It's just, I don't know. I felt so bad for all three of them in this episode. Listen, I'm sure not everyone's going to share that opinion, I'm sure some might think that they all had it coming, but I don't know, man. It's just not how I felt about the royal guards in this episode. All three of them, including the situation Neferpita finds herself in. But yeah, going back to Yuppie, you see that, tribal affiliations and that tribalistic nature just comes through almost immediately. Once he understands, okay, a human might have done something unthinkable to our king. So he's immediately regretting his earlier choices with some of those special humans that really helped him quite a bit, actually, right? But now, at the end of the day, tribal affiliations and all of that's the name of the game here. I mean, on the other end, you've got Pito, who's just stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to protect Komugi, right? To keep her out of danger. And then, of course, you go back to this and you've got Poof and Yuppie at ground zero, just fearing the absolute worst, right? That desperation that's showcased here, it really kind of reminded me of family members, right? It's reminiscent of family members, desperately looking for loved ones in a disaster, right? In the aftermath of a disaster, right? In a wreckage or something like that. I thought it was really quite poignant. That's why I just really truly felt for them in those moments. And now both of them understand the cruelty that humans are capable of. And of course, the beginning of this episode, presented through really, archival looking footage, certainly highlights that the ugliness of humanity often overshadows the beauty of it, right? And of course, it gets into geopolitical implications as well. Hell, it even appears to have a bit of a Citizen Kane reference. Now, I'm not going to get into it too much, just because of potential spoilers. I know it's an old timer film, but still, it's an important film. So I don't want to, just in case, I don't want to, spoil anything for anyone. But yeah, the fact of the matter is they have the body now. And again, I called it harrowing because, you see Yuppie going into it, the active lava, essentially, right? The aftermath of it all, again, straight into ground zero. And of course, there's major implications there as well, because now those two have been exposed to radiation as well, right? Radioactive fallout material. So yeah, let's see if that is about to be a significant component of this, right, for the rest of the arc. Like I mentioned, if you're going to make it a grounded, authentic depiction of a nuclear strike, then of course, you're going to have to follow up with the aftermath as well, in my opinion at least. But also, let's not forget that even though the body has been retrieved, at this point, there's no signs of life just yet, right? It is his remains. But the fact that, it's gone to the point of actually showing a body at this point, yeah, it kind of opens it up to a revival, like I said a little bit earlier. But he's going to need immediate attention if that's going to be the case, right? And now, I'm trying to think of how exactly you could approach this, given the situation Pito finds herself in as well, and given just, the really, really immediate nature of it, the timing of it all, essentially. But, going back to their reactions to actually, coming across the king's body, I go back to it because it's left quite a lasting impression on me, I don't know, man. It felt so authentic. It cuts so deep, right? It's primal. It's from the heart, right? It's their king. It's someone, their only job, is to protect that king, again, even if he doesn't want that help. And, they must feel like, they don't deserve to live anymore at that point. It shatters them. And I think understandably so, even if Yuppie is quite stable at first, right? He understands that he's got to be the rock at this moment because his partner, his sibling at this point, Poof, is just completely out of it. And listen, if Yuppie isn't there, Poof is not going to be able to go into that, right? Active lava and all of that. Again, Yuppie's built a bit different, magical beasts, so he's able to adapt to his surroundings. But, right before the final moments of this episode, there's another really major moment for the story arc, right? It really is beginning to feel like the beginning of the end, because now Gon and Pito are off to Beijing on foot, right? On foot is faster, as he said a little bit earlier. My God, this is, it's that moment that really makes you uneasy now, right? Because up until recently, yes, they're all kind of locked inside of that room as she heals Komugi, and as Gon calls out, "You're done, you're finished," And of course, I'll come back to that in a bit because it is a major component of this episode. It's a bit of a breather episode. I mean, as breather as it can be, right? Following up something like 126. But it felt like, it's something that is needed as well. Yet it still has a lot of components that really keep it moving, don't they? Right? Significant moments as well. I mean, at this point, the inevitable is as close as it's ever been. Because at this point, perhaps over the span of the next few episodes, Gon is going to have to face that, Kite is truly gone. And once that happens, I think I've speculated a few times about this now. I think realistically speaking, I might see some really troubling things, right? Perhaps the unknown. It's one thing is for sure, Gon is he's going to be a broken individual, right? And Killua knows this, he understands this, because like I said a couple of episodes ago, he understands that Kite is gone for good. So it's interesting, Killua's mindset at this point. You see Kalgo questions him about it as well. But also one thing is for certain, according to Palm, now that she's seen Gon with these eyes, I think she said, I'll know immediately if something happens. It appears that she does need to have a look at the person first, right? And that was the disconnect, right? Killua back in episode 24 is left thinking, okay, how come she can see me, but she can't see Gon? And she's asking me about Gon's location. Though, I must admit, recently I've noticed that, some of these characters actually call him Gon. Actually, I think I picked up on that some time ago, but I kind of stuck to Gon because it feels like it's a bit too late now. But yeah, they do call him Gon, Palm especially. And, kind of connecting Gon's situation to Puff and Youpi's, you can kind of look at the king as their Kite. Seeing the king in this state, it broke them. Right? That's the thing I'm getting at here. I'm expecting Gon to have a similar reaction to that, right? Not exact same, in terms of like an outburst or, just these cries of despair, maybe that could be at play as well. But, something that is really quite similar to that, your mind just absolutely breaking at the reality of it. Once you have no other, nothing to hide from, essentially, you have to face the truth. And as far as Puff is concerned and his headspace, you see a little bit earlier, Knuckle had quite the run-in with his extension, his clone. Knuckle and I kind of see a really disturbing sight, right? Really disturbing, especially because it's so beautifully detailed. Right, disturbing and beautiful. Those two terms usually sometimes do go hand in hand, right? Because you see that ultimately Puff's beauty is pulled away, right? And beneath it, you see the raw ant nature on display, right? In beautiful detail, fully on display in all of its gnarly glory. But that close-up, that disturbing and beautifully detailed close-up is an image that's always going to be in my mind associated with the Chimera ant arc. Right? It does a lot of heavy lifting. Just that shot, nothing has to be stated. Just looking at that shot, reading that shot, it's just, it tells quite a story, doesn't it? Speaking of Knuckle and experiencing disturbing moments and things and behaviors, a little bit later on, he sees something really quite disturbing at play. He sees that, Gon is actively asking him and the others, I suppose, to, look after Komugi, hold Komugi, essentially. It's understood by both, or by all three of us, I suppose, Neferpito, Knuckle, and I, that he means as a hostage. It's pretty clear cut, right? As it's also spelled out as well. And, it's disturbing. It's a disturbing thought for someone like Knuckle. It really is. And the thing I really appreciate here is how gentle Knuckle is with Komugi a little bit later on, as they are on the balcony before Gon and Pito take off. And, I suppose there is a bit of a reunion there, right? Palm and Gon, but, it's kind of off screen because you see in the quick flashback, both of them are on the same rooftop together. And that's fine. That's fine. I don't really need, like a full-on reunion. It just doesn't make sense in this case. Given the situation at hand. But yeah, I love that, really caring and gentle touch. You see Knuckles' hand on her shoulder, right? He understands, she's, again, a bystander, He truly understands that at this point as well, now that she's up and about. And, you know, I've got to say, it's actually a really, really great thing to see her come to, right? To be a part of this, actively be a part of this, because she just brings a totally different type of energy, right? You see even Neferpito's a little bit, I thought it was a really fun moment, as fun as it can be in that situation, you know, her trying to handle this situation, because it's the first time she has to speak to Komugi just by herself, right? And she's not going to be standoffish or anything, you know, because Komugi is under her protection. So it was fun to see her kind of like, you know, try to address Komugi, right, to the best of her ability, kind of like a babysitter. But yeah, you know, understandably so, she's really quite perplexed after coming to. She's got a few questions, but, you know, she's still always quite mindful of potentially causing, you know, issues or troubles for anyone. So yeah, you know, it's good to see her back, but, you know, almost immediately something really quite disturbing happened, right? And this is the thing I'm alluding to. Actually, you know, this is even before that, you know, before Gon essentially specifies, okay, hold her essentially as a hostage. He said, if you delay me one more time, right, or the next time you delay me, I'll kill her. That's a moment. That's a jarring moment, because my immediate read on that is that he's not bluffing. Because up until this point, you know, Gon's been an open book. He's not one for false threats. He's just not. And even if it was a false threat, someone like Neferpito could see through that. You see the depiction of the aura at the time as he looks at her, as he just shoots daggers at her. I'll kill her next time, you know, if you delay me. You know, that threat has to be believable. And for it to be believable, he has to mean it. Right? Otherwise, you know, Neferpito might have seen through it, even though, like I said, you know, she's hypersensitive to anything at the moment. But, you know, again, the aura that he is exuding, that certainly tells a story. So, you know, my immediate read on that, and even now as I, you know, discuss this, is that he meant it. I think Gon most definitely meant that, right? Everything I know about Gon up until this point dictates that that's not a false threat. It's just not, right? And that is crazy. It is crazy that Gon has gone to that point at this point. Interesting sentence there. You know, it's really quite indicative of the headspace he finds himself in, the headspace he's locked himself in, right, and pushed everything else out. It's disturbing. It's a disturbing thought for sure. You know, especially given, you know, back in the York New City arc, you see Gon's had a go at the Phantom Troop, right, at Krollo for harming innocent people. You know, back in Heaven's Arena, you know, he is so upset. He hated that Zushi was taken, that he was kidnapped, that he was utilized in that capacity, right? Kidnapped to keep someone in line, to get something out of someone. So yeah, you know, look at him now. Look at him now. It's unfortunate, man. It really is unfortunate. I believe back in episode 125, you know, I had that discussion point of him, you know, gaining this leverage over someone like Neferpito, right? And, you know, I kind of presented my points on that, right? But now, you know, this is kind of like, okay, it's as clear cut as it gets. You know, he's actively now threatening someone innocent, right? Overlooking that she is meant to be innocent. She is innocent, right? But again, you know, there is a tiny opening here for another angle, once again. I mean, first of all, again, you know, before I go any further, he is essentially, you know, still using it as leverage, right? He understands that, right? An innocent bystander, just because of her association with Neferpito at that point, just, you know, knowing that, okay, Neferpito cares for this person. But then also, you know, on the flip side, I suppose, you could argue that it's dangerous to assume she's innocent, if maybe you are looking at it from Gon's perspective, because you look at people like Knuckle, and maybe even some of the others, you know, maybe a Kolgo and Melioron, and Knuckle certainly, Killua certainly has his own thoughts that he keeps to himself. Yeah, you know, to them it's like, okay, you know, Gon's really, he's really crossing some lines at this point. But then also maybe you could look at it as him seeing Pito healing her, you know, within the palace, right? Concerned for her and her safety. So at that point, did he just kind of decide then and there that this is an extension of the enemy and I have to treat her in that manner, right? Eyes on the prize and all that. Tunnel vision. But even a little bit earlier, you know, Pito's once again just really on edge, right? Because at that point, you know, Gon steps in and he said, "You're finished." And of course, that just sends her spiraling, doesn't it? Right? And I mean, it also does appear that, you know, Gon's senses are so dialed in, so sharp, and so heightened that, he did pick up on it, right? That he does understand it's done, and she's just kind of delaying it at this point. I mean, of course, Pito wrestles with the idea of him cutting it short, possibly because of, picking up on her bloodlust, perhaps, right? Earlier on. But, once again, I think that idea of her overestimating Gon is still at play a bit. Because at one point, as she is approaching Gon before, the others walk in, Killua and Knuckle, you see that there is an opening there. She is close enough to take off his head with one arm. But Pito couldn't move, right? She couldn't execute on that. I think she could have done it. I think she could have taken care of Gon then and there, right? But the risk is just too damn high. Just the tiniest chance of not getting the kill shot, it puts Komugi at risk. So, it's just not worth it for Neferpito, because even right now, she would have killed him. She could have killed Gon, right? But of course, she would have been jumped immediately by Killua and Knuckle as well, and anyone else, I suppose, but that's just a hypothetical, I suppose. But see, that's also the thing. If she is able to, in a hypothetical, take care of Gon, just kill him right then and there, then, that notion of Komugi being at risk is kind of eliminated. So maybe she could openly just fight against all oncomers, right? Knuckle, Killua, and whoever else comes in. Palm's back there as well. Ikalgo. Ikalgo made something really quite clear. All of them together couldn't even take on Neferpito. That's a challenge at hand. So that also confirms once again that if Gon is actually to do anything to Neferpito, it's going to require something I've never seen before. I've speculated about this before as well. That at the base level, he's not a match for Neferpito. She can kill him, if she's able to strike him, right? If she makes the choice to strike him down, that is. So yeah, that is something I've been tackling in my mind as episodes play out. One of them's got to go. That much is clear. One of them has to die, and really quite recently, Neferpito also, she became quite resolved to eliminating this potential threat to the king. Perhaps it could balloon into a threat down the line in the long run. She understands that she has to take care of it. One of them has to go. And one of them is going to go. And realistically speaking, you're looking at most likely Neferpito dying, right? Because again, realistically speaking, especially now that I've seen that the other two have gone into ground zero as well, yeah, it kind of does feel like the beginning of the end, I suppose. But I'm just drawing a blank here, folks. How exactly could Gon actually do something to Neferpito? But that being said, Gon's had a lot of time to himself, just thinking to himself, perhaps, if he is thinking. That entire time he just sat there, and just looking on as Neferpito did her thing, right? Healed Komugi. The crazy thing is, and again, unsettling thing is that there's just no internal monologue for Gon, right? But there usually isn't anyways. But the crazy thing is that even the narrator doesn't actually take a swing at it, right? That's a really deliberate choice, in the writing of it. So as an audience member, I'm just kind of left thinking about the thoughts that might be going through Gon's mind, if there are any thoughts, right? But there might be. There's enough time there for him to think about some of these things. There is a decent amount of time to reflect, to plan, to strategize, perhaps, right? How do I actually kill her, right? Once I need to do that, if I need to do that, essentially, right? How do I close that gap? Is Gon actually, actively thinking about these things as he sits there? Listen, even if it feels like a bit of a mystery, or if I'm drawing a blank, there's setup in the past, right? In past arcs, to give me enough reason to think that, okay, if push comes to shove, he could do something, really, really crazy. Hell, Killua actually even touched up on the episodes ago, at worst, he might give up his life to take hers, right? Something along those lines. But the thing is, someone actually told me in the comments that that's actually a mistranslation. It's actually meant to be both Gon and Killua, that Killua's open to that as well, right? Something along the lines of, lovers dying together. But one thing is for sure, having Gon Freaks as an enemy is highly unfortunate for anyone, and that includes Komugi in this, Komugi, maybe, by extension, but yeah, Neferpito in this situation that she finds herself in. She's not able to do anything. She's not able to retaliate or take the first step to attack him. But to end it off, let's shift the focus to the beginning of the episode, right? The exposition, the background information, the world building, in relation to the miniature rose and its use. I thought it actually added a lot of really solid context. But yeah, I mentioned the archival footage approach. I felt that it really kind of grounds it, right? Kind of adds that bit of grit and realism to really, showcase how horrific this is, given the real archival footage that's out there as well, I felt that, the imagery that's being presented here, it did a really effective job of kind of putting you into that headspace, that uneasy headspace, to sit there with that imagery as it plays out in your mind and, as the narrator does his thing, and just the horrific nature of it. But, like I said, I appreciate the geopolitical implications of it and the context it does provide, right? They, like I said, they're really driving that point home, really kind of, twisting the knife once again. The bomb is both low budget and compact. This is the type of bomb that did that type of damage, right? That killed the chairman Netero and then also left Meruem in this state. But, this idea of the bomb being both low budget and compact, but at the same time proving to be surprisingly lethal, that's just a recipe for mass destruction, right? At your fingertips. And once again, this kind of, goes back to some of the discussion points from episode 126, the last episode. This is how much humans have been able to simplify mass destruction, right? This is how easy it is for them to just unleash hell on earth. Like I said, mass destruction at the fingertips. And at this point, it really drives home the fact that, this is really out there. These bombs are really out there all over the place. Right, I think there's a line of dialogue that in more than 250 countries and reigns of the world, 10 times as many roses bloomed, consuming something like 5 million lives. And, it's an interesting number to use as well, given, the lives that are at risk in the NGL. But then the montage that follows up, it's just chilling. It's frightening, isn't it? It's quite a damning depiction of a type of future, I suppose, right? The almost casual nature of it. Just how casually it's being utilized in just such populated areas. Just, people going about their normal lives and boom, just like that, all of a sudden decimated, right? It once again really drives home the fact that the ants never really had a chance to begin with. That, it really never was that global threat that I used to think it is back in the early days of this arc. Again, reality check, isn't it? And in that montage, as these bombs are going off, right, and it just goes on and on and on, and, it just makes you even more uneasy, you see that it's clearly depicting, the beauty of the world as well, right? The innocence of the world. But like I said a little bit earlier, the ugliness of humanity can overshadow the beauty of it quite a bit. And, one of those shots that really stood out to me is of that child just going about a normal day, just playing in the snow and the sled, of course. And in the background, just so casually, one of them's just going off just like that. An initial treaty is signed or was signed that banned the bomb's productions, right? But that's just applicable to new ones because basically, I believe they said 80% of the world's countries rejected the proposal, right? To discard the ones that are already at play, that have been produced already. And of course, there's a lot of reasons for that, especially if you bring in real life examples, right? Competitive reasons, safety measures, mutually assured destruction, right? There's just no incentive to pull the trigger or to remove it altogether. But yeah, there's a line of dialogue there. And again, the imagery that is associated with it or, showcased alongside it is just hauntingly beautiful. I know it's a term that gets used quite a bit sometimes, but that one truly is. I had to write down the line of dialogue there, meaning that hundreds of thousands of seeds still wait silently in many countries for their chance to bloom. My God. Right, and again, you see the imagery, you see these factories and, the barbed wire, but then you also see the roses. That's certainly quite a way to put it, isn't it? Like I said, it's dark, incredibly dark, but poetic, right? So Togashi's at it again. But again, if you go back to 126, so that specific miniature rose, just a single miniature rose had to be acquired, right? So the chairman could be outfitted, right? As the last resort, right? Contingencies and all that. So it's an interesting thought, to kind of think about how exactly they acquired it, the channels and all of that, how it came through, who provided it ultimately. But yeah, I think that should do it for this one, folks. It's a great episode, again, bit of a breather, but great episode nonetheless. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in early access or timer-based full length, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel as well. Links are in the description and the pinned comment, also links to social media, if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is. And I do hope to see you again soon for the next one. Until then, take it easy.